Ladies and gentlemen, now it's the time for the roundtable discussion represented by different universities in United Arab Emirates, discussing how universities can support innovation. Moderated by Professor Bassam Mukhtar, the Assistant Professor of Computer Engineering at College of Information and Technology at University of Fujairah. And participating professors, starting with Dr. Mulham Ad-Douri, a Professor of Computer Science and Dean of College of Information and Information Technology in Fujairah University. Professor Philip Hamel, the Associate Provost for Student Success of Abu Dhabi University. Professor Nicola Pito, the Executive Director of Applied Research, Innovation and Entrepreneurship at Higher Colleges of Technology. Professor Umar Ayash, the Senior Specialist, Divisional Resources, Office of Executive Dean, Business Higher College of Technology. Dr. Daniel Choi, the Associate Professor of Mechanical Engineering at Khalifa University of Science and Technology, Abu Dhabi.
Hello, good afternoon. I am very pleased to be with you today. I appreciate your attendance, and today we'll discuss an interesting topic. Let us introduce first our session today. We'll talk about the role of universities in playing a major contribution for developing the educations and systems, and how to be able to create knowledge and innovation-based economies. And as we know, we are moving now to the fourth generation of universities. The first generation of universities targets education. Then the second generation targets scientific research besides the educations. And the third generation of universities targets, besides scientific research and education, it targets the initiating startups and ideas that can be commercialized. And now we are moving to the fourth generation of universities that targets entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial education. So in this session, we will discuss how universities and their partners, different partners from different sectors in the innovation system and the innovation ecosystem, can join forces to build bridges across institutional and disciplinary boundaries, looking for new collaborative formats and spaces in order to address shared challenges. So please join me in welcoming our panelists today. Dr. Mulham Ad-Douri, Professor of Computer Science and Dean of College of Information Technology at Fujairah University. Professor Philip Hamel, Associate Provost for Student Success, Abu Dhabi University. Welcome, Doctor. And Nicola Petio, Executive Director of Applied Research, Innovation and Entrepreneurship at the Higher Colleges of Technology. And Professor Omar Ayash, Senior Specialist, Divisional Resources Office of Executive Dean, Business Higher College of Technology. And Dr. Daniel, Associate Professor, Mechanical Engineering, Khalifa University of Science and Technology, Abu Dhabi. Okay. Okay, let's start. We'd like to know how to be able to have the new technology that can support education-based entrepreneurship in universities, and what's the role of university in creating a knowledge and innovation-based ecosystem? Can Dr. Mulham answer?
Universities are not a new phenomena. They existed for a long time. And universities mainly have 2 or 3 players: faculty and staff, and society to interact with. This existed hundreds of years ago, if you go, like thousands of years ago. Currently, now we have a change in the medium of transfer of that knowledge. The word knowledge has existed, and definitions of that are available for a long period of time, and trying to find out the process of being able to transfer that knowledge from a knowledgeable person, supposedly the faculty, to the student with some in a friendly environment, some environment that could inspire the student to learn faster. This process has moved, evolved, always evolved and changed at a steady rate over the time. Currently, there is pressure on, and I say currently in the last 50 years, pressure on a change in that process because the mediums of transfer of knowledge has changed. Certain rituals of transfer of knowledge has changed. Transfer of students from one place to another has changed. Faculty availability has changed. Some elements have become more rapidly available, or more rapidly demanding, or there is some speed involved in the process. Therefore, not to match that change in the tools and in the style of exchange of knowledge can create a lag in the process, and that sometimes is seen as students not being prepared for society, or faculty not teaching well, or university not being up to date with knowledge that will serve the society. These factors together, when they are when they coincide in direction, and when they are tuned to be able to working together with the medium, they can produce a better society and a better system that will serve the society. Currently, we are in the middle of a cyclone of data exchange and a cyclone of hardware improvements and software improvements that is affecting our tools of trade, which is the one that we're using to exchange our knowledge to our students. And if we need to innovate to be able to make that interesting, and at the same time, the society is changing rapidly. The speed is changing rapidly of life. So students need to be able to interact with society while they're still students. Hence, the incubation of students in startup companies and encouraging them to start their projects.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prof. Philip, so to be able to be converted to the new generation of education and universities and to achieve entrepreneurship vision, so there is a role from the industry. So so it's can you speak to us about this role?
Yeah, we have recently refreshed our research, innovation, and impact policy, and we are focusing on a number of areas, and probably from an innovation and entrepreneurship point of view, when you speak to people in this area, one of the key objectives is to produce graduates with an entrepreneurial mindset. So it gets back to the concept of the ecosystem. So in terms of our research strategy, one of our core themes is fostering an inquiry-based culture. So what we have is an innovation centre which spends a lot of time and effort not simply about delivering the curriculum, but trying to produce students with that innovative mindset, with the entrepreneurial mindset, with an expansive mindset that can think about problems and come up with solutions. So a core element for us of innovation is developing an ecosystem focused on the students. And we see our research, innovation, and impact strategy interlinked with our teaching and learning strategy as being one and the same thing. We are a community of scholars who are focused on teaching, research, and innovation as our core mandate as a university. That then interconnects with more the faculty side. And I see my director of research sitting up here in the middle, picked up an award today for being the most inventive university, so he's probably better placed to answer this question. So on the faculty side, we have lots of mechanisms in place to, first of all, commercialise IP, and again getting our staff and faculty to think about what's possible, what's innovative, and how we can take ideas and convert them from an idea into commercialisation. That really are two of the core strands. Now, a third element, and we talk about connecting with industry, and I read a lot of research strategies that speak a lot about entrepreneurship, and I think one thing we're missing in a lot of research strategies is the notion of entrepreneurship. New firm formation is taken as a given. It's a fundamental to create any dynamic society. But one of the biggest challenges faced by all economies, even the most advanced economies, is productivity growth. How do you keep yourself at the frontier? How do you innovate? And entrepreneurship is a fundamentally important concept. So the third strand of our research strategy focuses on how we can promote connections with industry, how you can take research for commercialisation, and our key enablers. Again, looking at our portfolio, we have a Doctorate of Business Administration, and one of the key objectives of that programme is to get people who go back into industry and think about entrepreneurship. How can they be innovators within their own firm? So a key objective at our university, I think a key objective for most policymakers, economic policymakers, is to try and improve productivity and put in place mechanisms to make firms more productive. And to do that, the universities are critical. So typically your MBA programme and technology transfer programmes are fundamentally important, and the DBA programmes also. So we're evaluating where we're currently at now and the successes that we've had, and we're building upon that for the next 4 to 5 years. So in a nutshell, our research strategy is about students, it's about faculty, and it's about how we connect with the outside world, which is totally integrated. And again, probably the best description I've heard in the past year or so about what you really want to achieve as a university. Well, there's been a huge investment and a lot of talk about STEM, which is fundamental: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But the X factor in all of this is creativity. So it's not just about STEM; it's STEM with creativity. So we're talking about STEAM. So the new buzzword is science, technology, engineering, mathematics, with some creativity thrown in.
Thank you, Doctor. Nicola. To be able to closing the two different partners or different actors, like universities and the industry partner, for example. So we need a contribution for the government. So can you tell us your vision about how the government can help in creating the knowledge and the innovation-based ecosystems?
Yeah, so I would like to make first a couple of comments on the entire subject and then answer your question. So first of all, I do believe that creating an entrepreneurial ecosystem within universities is a mix of key ingredients of a certain recipe. These key ingredients are the same worldwide. So I mean, changing the culture, providing funding to startups, coaching to startups, creating good research that generates implementable technologies into transferable technologies. What I do believe is that every single ecosystem is different, and what we have here in the UAE is very different from what we have seen over the years in the US, or what we have seen over the years in Europe or in Asia. So we need to we cannot simply apply a recipe that worked somewhere else. So the entrepreneurial ecosystem in the US have been built over decades, and is based on huge technology transfer efforts from universities with very big tech transfer offices, armies of IP lawyers writing patent applications, startup companies leveraging on this IP, etc. Europe is slightly different, Asia is slightly different. What we have here in the UAE is nothing, or in the region. Again, I've been used to work in Saudi Arabia for a few years. It's very, very different. So we cannot apply this recipe. The mandate is the same. So economic impact, generating economic impact is the same. So is but what we need to put in place is different. So what is the role of government? So I see the role of government as a bootstrapping entity. So it's very useful. It has been very useful, for example, in Saudi Arabia, in providing venture capital money to startups when there were no VCs operating in Saudi. It has been very useful here in the UAE in generating similar funding program for startups. I mean, there are so many funding agencies in the region, facilitating every effort for a startup to become a licensed entity, a legal entity. Again, encouraging universities in doing their job. Again, we as HCT, we have a big mandate. So, I mean, generation of knowledge is no more a priority for any university worldwide. Maybe preparing students with the right skills for the workplace is a priority. We have a totally different mandate. So we not only we need to prepare students with the right skills for the industry, but we need to graduate startups. So the government wants us to spin out companies. So universities today in this region, but again worldwide, are becoming the sort of lab for generation of economic impact. So this requires a totally different mindset. It's no more something that happens in the classroom. Happens more in accelerators, incubators. So the classroom is probably preparing students having the right skills for whatever they will be doing. But in terms of economic impact, what is done by accelerator incubators is way more fundamental. So coming back to the different elements, I would say that the first one is culture. So a change of culture is fundamental in every ecosystem that wants to generate economic impact in terms of entrepreneurship. So I've been working for a long time in France, for example, and in France, you are a successful person if you work for a state-owned big corporation. Maybe in the UAE, you're a successful person if you work for a government institution. So we need to change this culture. We need to make sure that the families of our students feel the entrepreneurial route as a very successful route to be taken. And again, as you were mentioning, even if you do it once, you become a better person, more resilient. You can work in the industry with the same spirit, with the same kind of. So again, the government needs to be a facilitator. It needs to put patches whenever there is a need. For example, in this region, there is not such a structured venture capital industry, so funding is fundamental. Facilitation in removing the barriers to do business. So doing business in this region sometimes might be very tricky for big corporations. Can you imagine for a small company? So I would say that these are the main things. And again, encouraging universities to move away from generation of pure knowledge, but generating economic impact. This is true everywhere in the world, and needs to be true here in a very innovative economy like the UAE.
Thanks. Now we discussed the vision of each actor, individual, like the role of university, the role of industry, the role of government. Now to be able to have like a zoom in how to be able to build like an attractive environment by universities to attract the industry. How shall university create impactful partnerships with the industry? Dr. Omar.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm the only one with a handheld mic, so I guess I get the bigger part of the panel, right? No, it's really a pleasure to be here. We're excited to be here. Just to add a few points, from what our esteemed panelists have talked about. One of the key things that, I've got a very simple strategy that I view the world in terms of anything that we operate within. You need a certain level of awareness that leads to understanding, that eventually leads to action. And that's really, when you look at anything that's happening across the system, you need to make sure that our students, whether they're coming for a 4-year degree or whatever, that there are multiple touch points that you can focus on within the innovation entrepreneurship sector. So whether it's activities in the classroom, whether it's activities at the library, whether it's activities within the library or what have you, that's what leads to awareness. That's many times, the students are really not very familiar with the topic of innovation entrepreneurship or any topic. That's why they're choosing to come to the university. And eventually, if you get them involved in the awareness level, they will eventually get to an understanding level, and that's when the understanding fits in with the entrepreneurial mindset and the cultural shift. And within that, hopefully that's what leads to action and eventually leads to a startup or a successful commercialization in some shape or form. So going back to your question, how do you make sure that the industry interacts with the university? In reality, you got to make sure that it's a win-win situation for everyone. The universities going to operate on their own. Government's going to operate on their own. Industry's going to operate on their own. Each one needs to break down the silos to make sure that there is successful interaction that happens from both perspectives. The key advantage that an industry has from working within the university environment is a lot of times that's where the latest information is available, the latest technology is available, and they can utilize on that perspective. Another major advantage is the industry might be looking for solving real-life problems, and universities can actually focus on that activity in making sure that innovation and entrepreneurship happens. This is what typically we call applied research, and that's the place of where many universities and technology transfer centers are available within that framework. From our perspective, I think, at higher colleges of technology, a lot of times, there is an opportunity for industry to work with us, but we're also focused on the student startup journey and how the students are being equipped through the accelerators and the boot camps and through the major to make sure that they have the necessary skills to become successful entrepreneurs at some point or another. But keep in mind, we're not going to get all of our students to become entrepreneurs. Really, we are very much focused on the entrepreneurial mindset. If our student is entrepreneurial in their day job, that's a good thing for the corporation. If a student chooses to become part of academia and eventually they become entrepreneurial within academia, that's a good situation. Having an entrepreneurial mindset really is a key ingredient in transforming the culture going forward.
Thank you, Doctor. That's a very important point to be able to build entrepreneurial mindsets in other students. Even they will not be entrepreneurs, for example. Dr. Daniel, how do you create innovation at university, incentive innovation at university, for example? If you have talk at the model of university, how to be able to encourage students to be able to apply innovation, the incentive innovation at programs, for example, university.
Sure. I definitely agree with Dr. Omar's kind of perspective. I think entrepreneurship mindset of the students needs to be promoted, right? So the question is how you could kind of promote students' kind of entrepreneurship mindsets. So encourage the students to build up some business mind. Well, let me just explain my example. Whenever because I actually used to be working as SBIR committee, when I was in the state, one of the government agency. So when I was working over there, my job was to working with academia, to promote the kind of a small business ideas, and so that they could participate in these activities, more actively. So I've been talking to a couple of academia places around my place. There's California. There are a couple of universities there. So whenever I visit the university, then I talking to the students. The students really interested in entrepreneurship. But the thing is, how they can proceed it. I was a little bit surprised that because that time, even though they have entrepreneurship, some kind of office, technology transfer office, a lot of office there, but there's a little bit kind of, disconnection, miscommunication between students and, that university. I think similar things I observed, when I was working in the university, in California University over here, Abu Dhabi. We have a technology transfer office, and also there is an industry relationship office, but there's not much communication with the students. So I think my vision is to just educate the people, not only students, but also people who are working in the technology transfer office in the, in the universities and maybe some government people as well, so that they can work together, so the students could be aware of the process to pursue the entrepreneurship. And also another thing is, how to motivate the students. I think that is very challenging because, students, as Dr. I think Omar mentioned a little bit, students when they come to college, some of the students maybe they're much more interested in academia, not really, entrepreneurship, right? So they're not really interested in some entrepreneurship as well. So I think as an educator, if we may not have some right expertise and experience, we might need to get the right people involved in this process, or right people. Get right people involved in this program. It's like inviting some people from my industry or some other place, so they can help us to kind of promote that kind of program. So they might have some better kind of skill, better expertise, so they know how to approach the students and promote that idea better. Because I've been, I was working in the SBIR, but it's already almost 15, 20 years ago. But things might have changed a lot. When I was working in the SBIR program in the state. Now I know, I think UAE, they're trying to kind of establish, some kind of government kind of program. They can promote the, small business kind of innovation, idea. So I think now things might have been changed a lot, so we might need to adding some more updated, I would say strategies. Okay, that might be aligned with the current needs over here. As the colleagues talk about it, there are some kind of strategies and program might be working very well with the state in Europe, but that program and strategies may not be working in UAE. Right? There's kind of not totally, but there might be some difference as well. As an example, one of my students really interested in spin up the company from her thesis work. So she was trying to go through, setting up the companies and trying to get some funding from government agencies somewhere. But I think what I found out was it's not really easy, even though there are some programs in there. There are not much direct guidelines, for students to go through. So I've been talking to some of the people around, and but I still can see some little barrier, So that kind of things we might need to think about it, how you can resolve it. And so yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. Okay, Dr. Malham, if we are going now to think about the needed structures that can support our motivation to have to create the knowledge-based and innovation-based ecosystem, to have the entrepreneurship education.
What strategies? Or
like structures. Yeah, like services, funding. What different structures we have to be able to achieve this education system?
Following from what my honorable colleagues have just delivered, innovation, and we're talking about innovation at university level. I like to think innovation or going through innovative movements for knowledge exchange has to start at a much earlier stage, much earlier age. I also like personally to believe that innovation is a frame of mind that you can innovate at whatever level of knowledge that you have, and you generate something. And mankind has been innovating from day zero till now. So this innovation process will not stop. The question is what triggers that innovation, and what is the most fruitful innovations that we have these days in our lives. So, again, I have a thought in my mind that says that the most popular innovations that we have currently are the ones that did not come out of university. We have 2 university dropouts in the name of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, creating the most popular 2 companies in the world, and creating offshoots of innovations like applications that are now occupying our lives. We were just discussing earlier on that a small innovation like WhatsApp can attract 1.2 billion users within 4 to 5 years' time. That did not come from the realms of a university or academic environment. However, you still need tools to innovate with. You still need to take formulas and mathematical models and algorithms and theorems to be able to put them together. And you will be taught innovation at an early stage, and you try to innovate with these tools. A strategy has to be, a structure has to be started earlier at an early stage, early age, even from the first year primary school. At each level of education, there needs to be sensors to be able to find out who are the innovators among the pupils that we have, and how can we enhance this innovation process or talent that we have to improve it at every stage. When they come to university level, for example, one of the tools that we have is your capstone project, and we normally give it to students in the final year. The idea is to give students the capstone project at the first year. The idea of being able to dream of first semester even, to start dream about your massive project that you'll deliver in 4 years' time for 4 years, and try to innovate and change mind and create further and further until you come up with your best effort. Meanwhile, this could result in a company that could change your life. I still have to say, it's not as simple as that. Sometimes you have to dig in the books to find a little formula that was built by somebody 200 years ago that was totally dormant, sitting on the shelves for 200 years, and now it's valid and useful for us. Bayes' theorem, the guy died, and after his death they found some papers and they created these little formulas, and now they are the basis for our mobile phones 300 years later. It's a mixture of things. There's still the pressure on being able to have a structure for that will move fast and deliver quickly. Students have to taste their success quickly. Society has to see them successful. The concept of being accepted in society, the status symbol. It used to be that you have a degree, then you are accepted in society. Innovators with money are accepted in society. Now we need to have our students to be accepted in society before they graduate, because they are innovating enough to generate enough funds and change in society. That is a big leap and a lot of changes. It requires a strategy that starts from the first day they're born, and there's a plan for them to be able to improve their innovation process to then hopefully improve on their results eventually. There's a lot of ifs there, and it's a process that can progress into better results over a period of time. There is no magic wand for that, I don't believe. We can certainly improve education, we can certainly improve universities, we can certainly improve students to appreciate innovation and try to encourage them to innovate, but you still have to have the drive, and that is I am not an expert in that, what makes somebody innovates at a certain moment, what made the person invent the first fire, and then what made the first person invent the first electricity charge, and then the first person who invented transfer of data and created the internet. These are all innovations that were not in desperate need for them in society. However, now we cannot survive without them, and we are totally hijacked, and our lives are focused on, and people are glued to their mobile phones and to their digital equipments because of one simple innovation. What is awaiting for us what is the other innovation that's around the corner that's going to take our life in a different direction altogether? However, many useful applications came out of that, and certainly my answer to your question is to start early and then improve the process of appreciating innovation at university level through projects, through practical experience, and through internship programs.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. And from this point, if you have facilities for incubation, for acceleration and funding programs at university, how we can achieve impactful services from these units, for example? You have impactful results. yeah,
I'd like to take one step back
okay.
from sort of the outputs. And I briefly mentioned the concept of an inquiry-based culture. So it's about creating people who are innovative. We said about the entrepreneurial mindset. Last week we saw the close of Davos. And in terms of universities, the challenge for universities now is to produce graduate with future work skills. Knowledge evolves, knowledge changes. So it's about defining those graduate attributes that are the foundation for success. So you can use research, for example, and the research outputs and the research process as a means to develop these types of transferable skills. You can use the culture of innovation as a means to develop these transferable skills. So what are we trying to produce? Well, we're trying to produce graduates who are good communicators, who are problem solvers, who will can work in a team, who can lead a team, who are ethical. So these are all the attributes we're trying to develop in addition to the core curriculum of an engineering degree or a science degree or an economics degree. So when we break it down, the challenge really is to produce students who can display those characteristics, which are seen as being transferable skills, lifelong skills that will stand by the rest of your career. So we talk about the investment in infrastructure to support innovation. We have the significant increase in funding in Abu Dhabi for the funding of research, which is the faculty hardcore KPI research-driven environment for academic staff. I'm part of a generation. I started out in the UK, and we were the first generation where every single academic, regardless of their appointment in a research post, had to complete a postgraduate certificate in university teaching. At that time, I just finished my PhD, I got married, my son was born, and I had to produce research. And then I was told I also had to complete a grad certificate in university teaching. Fundamental to producing these graduate attributes is teaching and learning, and the quality of teaching and learning, which is a complex process. Right? So if you want to invest in innovation, if you want to invest in entrepreneurship, if you want to develop these transferable skills, particularly at undergraduate level, you have to invest in the calibre of teaching and learning within the universities. So in the UK, you wouldn't get away with an academic appointment in terms of the quality of teaching and learning. It brought in the Research Excellence Framework 30 years ago, which has transformed the productivity and the quality of research. They invested in teaching and learning 25, 30 years ago for my generation. They've now brought in the Teaching Excellence Framework. So if you said to me in terms of infrastructure, how would I support from the undergraduate level up? If I was lucky enough to influence policy in the UAE, it would be to make sure that the quality of teaching and learning of people who are delivering teaching and learning in universities is capable of developing those future work skills. Most universities, if you honestly speak to people, there's too much chalk and talk. There's too much testing, there's too much in-class assessment, there's too many end-of-term exams. Pretty dull stuff from a student's point of view. This is a different generation. I can't remember now if it's Z or X or whatever, but when you speak to kids nowadays, they're creative. And one of the most depressing statistics I've read recently was an article a couple of weeks ago where they measured the level of creativity of kids going into primary school, and it was something like 95%. And then they tracked it over time, and by the time those kids had got to university, it was down to like 5%. So somewhere along the line, the education system has knocked the creativity out of them. So the challenge for universities is to bring that back and to produce graduates who can achieve that. So I'm not sure if it answers your question, but it's something I feel very strongly about from an education point of view. So if you want to develop future work skills, you want to develop innovation, you want to develop entrepreneurial mindset, improve the quality of university teaching and learning. It's not random that if you look at the American model where you have the liberal arts colleges, those liberal arts colleges don't focus on research. Those liberal arts colleges focus on a fantastic intellectual, academic, teaching and learn experience, and many of those people, those liberal arts colleges, go on to elite universities to complete PhDs. So if you move from the undergraduate level and getting back to increased significant funding for Abu Dhabi, they're replicating the Science Foundation Ireland model, which I'm familiar with from 20 years ago. The current director, Dr. Martina, comes from that background. And when you move to the doctorate level, we're talking about developing a knowledge economy, a knowledge-based economy. Well, the rule of thumb or the litmus test for a PhD is production of new knowledge. When I finished my PhD, I got a pat on the back, and the more difficult the paper and the better the journal and the more incomprehensible the paper, that was a mark of respect. Okay? No one said to me, can you commercialise it? Can you make money out of it? So it's a different generation. So again, academia, may appear critical, but there's too much focus on the output and not enough focus on the process to get to the output, which develop all those other skills. So before I came here, as part of a Science Foundation Ireland project, a huge project with hundreds of PhDs and postdocs. Of 100 PhDs and postdocs, how many go into academia? 2, 3. In a large-scale model, 97 of the other people will end up in industry. So it's fundamentally important that these people, and the focus not simply the output, the process, and creating the scale at the doctorate level, high-quality doctoral programs, is what, in my view, in my experience, will really drive the knowledge economy. So at the undergraduate level, develop the transferable skills, world-class teaching, to produce these students with these transferable attributes, and at the higher level, knowledge-driven part of the economy, you have the fantastic PhD programs that are going to deliver on the knowledge economy and link with industry. So.
Thank you, Dr. Now, from converting from the traditional teaching methods or to follow smart learning techniques, to be able to apply practical hand-on exercises and educations can lead for better results and create innovative mindset.
I used the phrase inquiry-based culture, and that's embedded in our teaching and learning strategies. If you get time, there's a publication on the inquiry-based culture that was developed at University College London. Basically what it's saying is, let's focus on the outputs. Let's focus on what these people maybe have to do in the real world, and not just simply on an exam, and work towards that. A very good example from my own discipline, my background, I'm an econometrician by training, is that in my generation, you did lots of different exams to do proofs of econometric models. Well, really exciting stuff. Whereas I would say, okay, what I want these people to do at the end of the process, I want them to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And you break it up and get them to work through it and develop these skills of problem solving, data manipulation, data communication, completing a project, working in teamwork. People underestimate the value of just the basic quality of teaching and learning in university. If you said to me, well, what is the magic wand of universities? Well, if every single member of staff was able to implement best practice teamwork, that would have a huge impact on the graduate attribute of a student. If every single student at every single university was able to participate in a team and at some point throughout their academic career lead a team, well, you're developing leadership skills. These are all the fundamentals that need to be systematically embedded across a university. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of skill from the faculty level up, and it takes a systematic approach to develop that so you can turn around and say, this university, on average, will produce a graduate with these attributes.
Thank you. Nicola, I believe in converting the traditional research to applied research. This can lead to better achievement in converting to the ecosystem, innovation-based ecosystems.
Yes, again, this is something that is very much part of our DNA and our approach. So we don't do research per se. We do only apply research, and only when there are industry partners partner with us in order to push it. So again, we encourage our faculty to tackle real problems, the problems where they can generate results that are impactful. Sometimes we see faculty willing to push what they were interested in 10, 15, 20 years ago. And again, there is no point in doing that. We want faculty very much close to the industry, working on what the industry is asking us to work on, for many reasons. First of all, because we need to provide impact to the economy, and secondly, because very rarely we can have critical mass in the UAE. So in certain subjects, is very much wishful thinking to be able to have a critical mass in certain research subjects. So we want the people to be faculty very much involved with the industry partners and working what the industry partner asks us to work on. I mean, it's something that very often faculty don't like. Again, it's very much against their notion of freedom of research. But again, we don't need fundamental research in the UAE. We need research that is really creating impact into the economy. A couple of points, again, a couple of comments on what has just been said by my colleague. So I've been working as a venture capitalist in Europe, in France, UK, and in Russia for quite a while, for almost 15 years. And in my career, I saw very few startups led by faculty. I mean, faculty, and again, also recently I've been seeing lots of startup teams led by faculty, and this is very wrong. Typically, faculty come with a couple of students. They have the impression that being the boss in their lab, they're going to be the boss in the startup, and again, this is very far from being true. So very likely one of the students is way more prepared to lead a company than a faculty. So our approach at HCT is to keep the academic world very much separated from the entrepreneurial coaching and funding and support we are providing to our startups. Mm-hmm. We have today 3 incubators in Sharjah, Dubai, and Zaheima. We're deploying 11 more. I mean, these places are, again, you have everything you find in incubators, so Fab Lab and co-working space and office space for startups. But again, this is something that needs to be very far away from the academic exercise. Mm-hmm. In the classroom, you get skills, you learn accounting, you learn how to become a good engineer, mm-hmm. And you're taught as an individual. Every entrepreneurial program is not addressing individuals, is addressing teams, is addressing startups. Mm-hmm. It's a totally different games. And also, again, whenever a faculty is involved, they really need to change their mindset. So if they're part of a startup, they need to understand what is their role in the startup, mm-hmm. not what is their role in the research that has originated that technology. Mm-hmm. So this is very, very important.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Omar, what do you think about the biggest challenges that can be faced when creating an innovation ecosystem?
You know, one of the things that I want to highlight is I've been in the UAE for a good 10 years, and I've been able to see how the whole innovation entrepreneurship curriculum mindset has really evolved. You know, it used to be pretty much 10 years ago, it was a business discipline with one course being taught in the major, and that's what the students were exposed to when it came to innovation entrepreneurship. As you can hear from today, we've come a long way where, for example, at higher colleges of technology, Nicola was just telling you about our incubation spaces and things of that nature and infrastructure. We in the business department have a whole major that's focused around that. And, you know, it's no longer just a business discipline. It's evolved from the understanding that it is part of the CIS, it's part of the engineering, it's part of a number of different programs and what have you. But I'll be remiss today if I don't highlight one key point that has been very instrumental in making sure that ecosystem moves in the right direction. And Professor Nawaf is here with us in the audience. Hello, Professor. He and I were involved from the very beginning with, in 2015, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid partnered up with Stanford University to create a teaching and learning program where professors from public and private universities were trained on the Stanford approach to teaching innovation entrepreneurship. And a course was also developed where every student in our public and private school system has to take this course, and I think has been mainstreamed as a general studies course in all public universities and private universities. And this is what's creating the entrepreneurial mindset in a lot of our students. Having the teaching and learning switched in that perspective, providing the infrastructure as well as the tools and the necessary skills to help our faculty move in that direction, creating a course that's infused with the Stanford approach, at the same time being localized, has really took the innovation entrepreneurship level to the next cycle. And these are the types of things that are important with that. The challenges will continue to be in, the ecosystem is being developed. There are still, while the university systems are being developed, there's still some challenges in maybe certain sectors like the legal sector and maybe the banking sector. But all of these are being addressed, I think, and these are not necessarily within the university settings. We in the university settings need to focus, like I said before, on the experience that the student has in terms of the multiple touch points throughout the, let's say, the 4 years where they can get exposed to as much innovation entrepreneurship, hoping that they get, again, I know I'm sounding like the entrepreneurial mindset is really the key essence of their experience.
Okay. Dr. Daniel, our last question is for you. Do you think if we target like modern industry, like Industry 4, industry strategies for Industry 4 using IoT, if we address like this industry and learn students to tackle problems, real problems, situations in this industry, this can lead to have a better achievement for the innovation ecosystem. If we can like matching with modern industry needs.
I think so, because as I just briefly mentioned it, and also my colleagues, I think some of the colleagues already talk about it. Kind of teamwork among the industry and universities and governments kind of very important. So as an example, like university, one of the mandate, responsibility for the university people is to conduct the research, R&D, right? I mean, one of the advantage of a university is, I think they have an opportunity to conduct the high-risk research anyway, right? So once they come up with some good outcomes from the research, then they're thinking about commercialization. So there are two different types. I would say 3 different types of fundings available. One of the funding type might be some funding from industry. They really like to find out some engineering solutions and like a product they want. And the other type of the funding is the funding from the government. Sometimes they allow university to conduct a little bit high risk research, like not exactly fundamental kind of scientific research, but a little bit close to scientific research. And the other one is kind of internal funding, like a lot of freedom, fundamental research to applied research. So usually the industry, they're looking for very high TRL level, like I would say technology readiness level, at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 sometimes, in the next 3 years. They really like to see the product, deliverables, right? So when they do that, they're always working with the faculty. But I think mostly working with the faculty and some research staff, right? It'd be nice to get the students involved in this research work more seriously. Might be a little bit difficult for undergraduate students to participate in the kind of research work, but I would say I think that kind of streaming is kind of going on these days. Like even undergraduate students, they are working on the research project. As a volunteer base or, some part of the capstone project based, So by doing so, I think students will, I think we'll be understanding better, what industry's perspective and also, how they can work with the industry. That might be really helpful for students, future career as well. And when they're doing so, they can think about entrepreneurship as well. So I think, coming back to your questions, I think answer is yes. definitely. I think some kind of teamwork, some coordination between the industry and university, one of the key factors to be a successful kind of goal. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. The session time ends and went quickly. Let's summarize quickly what we discussed. We discussed like the main roles of different sectors in building in knowledge and innovation-based ecosystems, the role of university, industry, government, how to be able to create structures and tackle challenges of implementing education systems, to be able to build entrepreneurial mindset at students, and the possible challenges and solutions to have to address and achieve this education. Last, I would like to thank the panelists for your contribution and attendance. Thank you for the audience and attendance. I hope you get benefits and some knowledge about this innovation system and how to be able to convert our university to the first generations to be able to achieve like learning that can lead to innovative ideas and help in building better mindsets for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the very interesting discussion. I believe that one of the audiences have a question for the group. So could you please let us know what is your question? The mic, can you use the mic?
Here's Mike.
My name is Dr. Fatma Al-Bloushi, a PhD in Leadership Studies. Thank you so much for the interesting discussion. It's a comment and a question. I find some of what you have said somehow confusing. We are talking about modern and the new concepts like innovation, entrepreneurship, and it reflects some kind of critical thinking if we think about it as a new tradition of thinking in the West. At the same time, I repeatedly heard a very charismatic term and concept as well, which is changing mindsets. And I mean, you are trying to apply it in a totally different culture and with very rooted traditions of thinking. Have there been some exploration for the encounter between the two sets of traditions of thinking? Is it really safe after 20-25 years when the experts go back to their countries with our deep thanks and appreciation, and we are left with this adventure? Will there be backfiring? Because we noticed that some backfiring are taking place in other fields and areas, but with the same approach, the same plot. Is it clear what I'm saying?
Very much. So if I may start replying to that, I think you're referring to the fact that even changing the mindset might relate to a certain culture, entrepreneurial mindset that doesn't belong to here. And to be honest with you, I do believe that it belongs very much to here. So if I see how the Emirates have changed completely from being, again, a very arid, poor region into something that is driven by innovation and modernity, I mean, this is a very entrepreneurial spirit. This is very much driven by innovation. So again, I think your ancestors have been, and again, not a long time ago actually, have been driving this amazing change with the same spirit that has fed Jack Ma or again all the innovators in the Silicon Valley. So I don't think that we are trying to stimulate a change deriving from a different kind of mindset. The energy, the entrepreneurial spirit has been in this country for decades and has been driving this country from being, again, a very poor country to something that is really an example to many other countries in the world. So I don't think that it's an injection of something that doesn't belong to here. It's very much to go back to those roots and maybe forgetting about the cool job in a government agency that probably today is driving most of the aspiration of our youth. So I think this is very much what I do believe. Yeah.
I think also we can learn a few things from the Middle East. It's not simply imposing from the West to the East. Before I came to the Middle East, I would never have asked for a discount. Now I ask for a discount everywhere I go. So everything is a discount. A fazza card, some sort of card. There's the Arabian culture of the haggle, of trade, of commerce. And I think that's fundamental in the DNA in this part of the world. So I find it fascinating being here, come from a different culture and learning from different cultures as well. So just to reiterate the point that I think that entrepreneurship is definitely in the DNA in this part of the world.
So one other thing that I want to highlight on, and I don't want to get too professorial here, but really appreciate the comment. One of the key things that we try to teach our students from the beginning is what are your startup influences? And typically there are 3 startup influences. One is you as an individual, your particular situation, and then the community that you work within. And when we look through that lecture, for example, we're not trying to change the culture in any shape or form, but we're trying to get the student to critically think, do I really want to be an entrepreneur or not? Do I really want to adapt that opportunity? At the same time, if you, for example, if your family was already well-rooted into the area of being entrepreneurs or what have you, then the chance of you actually becoming an entrepreneur goes up. So this is the opportunity with that. And another key milestone when we're focusing on leadership, yeah, we could talk about the Steve Jobs of the world and the Bill Gates of the world and the Richard Bransons, but at the same time, we want to talk about the successful entrepreneurs that have really been very cherished in this country, whether it's Al-Abbas, whether it's El-Girgawi, whether it's a lot of good stories that have actually come up in the 40 years plus years of the UAE histories, where people have been able to become very successful in their entrepreneurial journey. And we want our students to be able to be exposed to their story and to think, look, if this person from my country, male or female, was able to be a successful businessman, I could also become a successful businessman or woman.